Okay, praise the Lord. I was sitting after I got out of the hospital, and I think it was actually still while I was in the hospital. I sat there and I thought about Peter, about him walking on the water, and about him going down into the water. But you know, there's something that every one of us has taught about Peter walking on the water. But what we missed wasn't him stepping out of the boat, wasn't him falling out into the water, drowning, or getting ready to drown. No, everybody preached about those two things, but there's one thing I have never heard anybody preach. Now, I'm not saying everybody's ever preached it. I'm just saying I've never heard it. And that's when he was drowning, what he reached for. See, he didn't try to get back to the boat. Most people, if they have a boat, they probably try to get back to it. He didn't try to get back to that boat. He didn't try to swim. He didn't try to fight against his circumstance. He did not give in to his circumstance and let the water just take him on down. What he reached for the rock. He reached for the solid ground to stand on. See, water's not solid ground unless it's ice. And we know it's not ice because there was a storm during all of this. And having the water go all around and everything. But what he reached for was the solid ground, which was the rock. Now here's Jesus. Now I'm going to tell you that I looked it up. And most people that are drowning will pull the person down with them. Not meaning to, not trying to hurt nobody, but they're scared. They're frightened. You know, when you're real sick or when you're scared or you're in danger, you don't think exactly straight. The other day when I had to call the ambulance, I forgot my own address. Now, I've been here 3 years, and I gave one of the numbers was the wrong number, and I kept saying, it's this number here, and the man on the phone said, no, it's not. There's no such number in your apartment complex. It's something else. So I had to actually go and look for my address. And it wasn't because I did not know it. That wasn't because I did not remember it. It was because I was so upset and feeling so bad that I could not think straight. Now this is with Peter. That's what most drowning victims do. They usually don't think straight. Okay, I need to get up out of here so I don't drown, but I can't. But I got to do it in a way that doesn't drown anybody else. They're not trying to. They're not trying to mean to. But let me say what Peter did. Peter stayed focused. Now he turned his head for a second, just long enough for the circumstance to scare him. Now he didn't do it because he didn't trust God. He did it because he was distracted. A distraction can cause just as much trouble as the sin that you're doing, because that distraction gets your eyes off of God and gets it onto that circumstance. But he checked himself real quick and turned back around to God. Now let me tell you what Jesus did. Now I don't think this is going to be a very long one. I'm going to read the scriptures after I finish. But listen to this. When Jesus when you lift somebody up, let's say, I don't care how strong or how big of a man you are, you take another grown man and you're trying to pull them up while they are kicking and swinging and just upset and everything else, and you're trying to pull them up while they're trying to get up on their own and they're sitting there not thinking straight. You're going to have a hard time doing that unless you got something to level you. And most likely, you're going to be pulled down too. But Jesus wasn't pulled down into Peter's circumstance. Jesus pulled Peter back up out of his circumstance. And here's the thing. Here's another thing too. See, here's the thing. The water is not solid. The water, it will keep you. Water is a place where you sink because there's no solid ground there. You're going to sink down in. That's what's going to happen to anybody that's drowning. I don't care if you're drowning in water, drowning in finances, drowning in relationships, drowning in health. It doesn't matter. If you are in that place and you have no place to stand, no solid place to step into, you're going to drown, because that type of material, that type of substance is not meant for you to stand on. It's meant for you to sink. It's meant for you to go down into. But here's the thing. Jesus pulled Peter up out of the circumstances. Instead of letting Peter pull him down, he pulled Peter up. And now here's the next thing too. And this is really something here. When Peter got back up, and Jesus pulled him up, Peter was no longer walking in the unsteady substance of his circumstance. Instead, Jesus took Peter and raised him above his circumstance, and with that circumstance, he made that ground solid so Peter could walk above his. You know what I'm saying? Peter would have been drowning if it hadn't been Jesus. Peter would have been drowning if he had not reached for Jesus. Peter would have been drowning if he would have took his eyes off and kept them off of Jesus and put on something else. Let's say his boat. I don't know how far his boat was from him, but say his boat. Now, I'm pretty sure Peter trusted his boat. It's his. That boat could still be rocked. That boat could still be tipped over. That boat could still break apart. See, there's people in your life that you trust. They can only take you so far. They can only help you so far. Some of them only want to help you so far. Some of them only want to help you when it's beneficial to them. Some start off good, really want to help you, but they get tired. Some break up themselves, health, relationships, family. But Jesus is a solid rock. Jesus, you can't move him. He moves when he wants to move. Nobody can move him by pulling, pushing, and shoving. Nobody can do that. The water can't make him drown because he has power over that water. That circumstance, Jesus could say enough. Jesus could say, that's it. Jesus can say, I rebuke you. Jesus can do it. And then when you get up there and you get on top of that water, you're no longer drowning in your circumstance. What you are doing is walking on solid ground, because he took you up from the circumstance and put you on that rock. See, I think a lot of us has missed that about Peter. A lot of us has missed that. We missed that no matter how bad our circumstances, no matter how deep that circumstance has us wrapped around, no matter that circumstance and feel like it's causing us to drown in whatever it is that we are having coming against us, but all we need is help. Jesus. All we need is put our hands out to him, focus on him. So yeah, okay, we turn our head. Okay, you know what? We're all human. Don't beat yourself up about it. Turn your head, turn it back towards Jesus. Turn it back and say, Lord, help me. Lord, help me. Grab his hand so he can pull you up. Because I don't care how hard you can pull, or how hard you think you're going to pull to try to pull yourself up. You're not going to pull him down. Instead, he's going to pull you up. And when you get pulled up, that unsure ground that you were stepping on, the one that was dragging you down to drown, the one that was pulling you down, God's going to put it into a solid ground. So when you start walking, when you start going, you know what? You know that you got the victory. See, Peter did two things right and he did one thing wrong. And a lot of times we talk more about the one thing he does wrong than he did the two things right. Let me tell you the one thing he did wrong, then I'll tell you the two that he did right. The one thing that he did wrong, we both know that he turned his head. He got distracted We all do. We all do. That's something we do almost every day. Now, the two things that he did right. The first one he did was he stepped out in faith. See, he wasn't thinking at that time about drowning. He was thinking about having faith in God. But his faith came back after he started drowning, because the next thing he did right, he focused on God. So here's the thing. I started thinking about that day, and I said, oh, Lord, that's something that right there is something that we need to understand. That just because your circumstance can pull you down under doesn't mean you don't have a chance to be pulled back up. It don't mean that you are at your end. It does not mean that you are finished. It does not mean that your circumstance has got the best of you. It tried, but as long as you got Jesus and you can reach out for him, then you know that circumstance is not as strong as your faith in God. It's not as strong as the God that you serve. So here's the thing. I'm going to read the scriptures that I got this from. Most of y'all know this because it's been taught over and over and over again. Mostly about Peter stepping out of the boat, which is a show of faith, and being distracted by the storm. Now, some people say that's lack of faith, but it's not. What it was is he was distracted. Take it from somebody with ADHD. Me getting distracted doesn't mean I don't have faith in God. It means I have ADHD. But that's what it means. Now, Peter just simply got distracted. But distracting can get you into a lot of trouble, just the same as sin can, just the same as backsliding can, just the same as anything else can. But you got to learn to refocus to where your safety is. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. Now see there was no, I know a lot of people say, well, you can walk on ice. Well, there was no ice here because it was, the waters was tossed, the sea was tossed with the waves, which means it was high, raising up and everything else. So there was absolute no ice there. They wasn't walking on any dry. What they were walking on is the sea, which was being, was just going all over the place and everything. So, and in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit, and they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. You know what? Peter said, I trust you. I have faith in you. I know I would not be able to walk on that water without you. But if I can walk on that water, see, that doesn't sound like a man who was going to lose faith in the middle of going through a stormy sea. No, I don't think he lost his faith. I think he just got distracted. See, distraction doesn't mean, I've said this before, distraction does not mean you've lost your faith. But you still need to get yourself refocused. Because where you get distracted and you don't get your focus back, you could lose your faith. You could start focusing your faith on something else. So it's just as dangerous as losing your faith. It's just as dangerous as sinning. It's just as dangerous as falling back. But it doesn't start off like that. It starts off as a distraction. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid. And he was afraid. I was wrong about that. And beginning to to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched out his... Now, here's the thing. I was looking for things about drowning. And it said a drowning is a silent killer. People don't flare their heads like this and everything. What they do, though, is, and I don't know why they do this and everything. I guess I should have checked more into it. But it says they put their hands to their side, and their mouths are a little bit open, and their mouths at the water. So they're very still. It sounds to me, kind of sounds to me like they're disoriented. Can't think, don't know anything. You know, they just don't know what's going on, or they just don't know what to do. I don't know, but they do not sound as if they are thinking straight. But Peter was thinking straight enough to sit there and say, Lord, help me. Now, I don't know if he was really in the stage of drowning, or if he's just sinking and thought he was going to drown. I don't know. I wasn't there. But what I do know is that when you are drowning and you have nothing to grab hold of, no faith to grab hold of, no solid rock to grab hold of, no solid ground to grab hold of, nothing there that you can trust to help you pull yourself up or pull you up for you. You'd give up, wouldn't you? See, there's another thing. Peter didn't give up. He knew that he had safety in Jesus. Let's see, I've lost my place. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were... See, I don't think that Peter showed doubt when he was calling for Jesus. He showed fear when he showed doubt when he feared. And we all do that too. And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth thou art the Son of God. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. I think I'm reading along. Yeah, I did. They came into the ship, the wind ceased. See, the thing about it is a drowning man without somebody that can help him has no hope. That is it for them. But get somebody who has somebody they can trust in, somebody they can hope in. The Lord helped Peter. If he was not there, Peter probably would have been dead at that time. Because I don't know if the other ones would have got out and tried to help him. I don't, or if they could, I should say. I'm pretty sure they would if they could, but if they could do it, I don't know. I don't think that he would have been. I don't think that he would have been saved, because it's a hard thing to save a drowning person because of the fear they have, because of the way they act and the way some of them will pull you down. Not to mention, I don't know if they knew anything about CPR back then. I don't think they did. Maybe they had their own version of it. I don't know. See, Peter reached for the only saving grace. Peter took his focus off of the only saving grace long enough for him to find out how much faith he actually had in Jesus. See, if he didn't have that faith in Jesus, he'd have been doing exactly what those other drowning people done. He wouldn't have been doing what he did. But the fact that he reached out for Jesus, called out for Jesus, and reached his hand out to take Jesus' hand. Oh, and by the way, the fact that he stepped out of the boat shows that with all of his flaws, and we know Peter had many, with all of his flaws, he still had faith in Jesus. And that faith helped pull him up out of his circumstance and put him on solid ground. I know that's not a very long one, but I thought I'd get it in there because it needed to be gotten in there. It wasn't long enough for a 2 or 3 minute video. I mean, it wasn't short enough for a 2 or 3 minute video. And it really needed to get there. Remember, there's 3 things that Peter did. Well, more than 3, but he did 3 things in this instance. And 2 was a show of faith, and another one wasn't. But the 2 show of faith equaled out the one that wasn't. Peter was something, wasn't he? I mean, he made a lot of mistakes, but he made the mistakes because he was faithful and strong enough. Not strong enough, but he was excited about serving God. He was faithful to God. He loved God. And he got out of his comfort zone. He got out and he just went on ahead because he loved God. He done a lot of things he shouldn't have. He said things he shouldn't have said. And yeah, he had fear up there too because he was human. But Peter stepped out more times than once, more ways than once, because his faith in God was strong.